Right. Well, welcome everybody to this new LDnet webinar on involving and empowering local communities to promote their cultural heritage, but this time with a particular focus on digital technology. Now, first of all, I thought it would be great to know where you're joining us from, and perhaps say hello. Why don't you tell us where you're, and say hello and tell us where you're joining us from in the chat. I think that'd be quite nice to see, for me to see where this network extends to. My name is Alexander Covine, or Sandy for short. I'm a project manager with Interpret Europe, the European Association for Heritage Interpretation. I can see in the chat we've got Latvia and Estonia, and Poland and Germany, Spain, Denmark. Great. So it really is great to have you all with us. I'm representing Interpret Europe, where I'm a project manager. I'm a Scot based in France, and my background is in rural development, promoting natural and cultural heritage for sustainable tourism for the most part. I'm currently running 2 European projects called Empaths and HI People, supporting the paradigm change in how we treat heritage from a traditionally expert-driven approach to more inclusive and co-creation with local communities participating as equals to reflect the different meanings and values that people attach to their heritage. Now, that might seem obvious to you, but it's not yet such a widespread approach. And as a wise and experienced colleague once said to me, heritage is about people and places. People are really important to managing places. You've got to get them involved. Well, we're trying to do that. We are doing that and trying our best in a fast changing context of increasing local expectations, of empowerment, and the use of new digital technology. And that is an area for me, certainly in heritage interpretation, which has typically favored first-hand experiences, is heritage interpretation tends to have a bit of an uncomfortable relationship with digital technology. But we all need to open up to the realities of what digital tools can offer us. So today, our speakers are Giuseppe Paci, Rosalba La Grottiera, Anthony Cassar, Harris Martinos, and Roberta De Bonis Patrignani. And they will share some fascinating case studies from Northern Italy, from Malta and Paros, to show us how local participatory processes combined with digital tools are being used to create cultural heritage spaces, whether that heritage is old or new, but heritage in the eyes of the experts and crucially the local people for a sense of shared ownership in their everyday lives. Now, our speakers are going to present one after the other for just over an hour, and that'll be followed by an opportunity for some questions and answers. So please, if you'd like to pose a question, do write it in the chat and try to refer to the presentation to which your question corresponds. So speakers, do please have in mind your times. I'm sure you do, so that we can all stick to the schedule. And without further ado, thank you very much again for joining us. And I'd like to invite our first speaker, Rosalba La Grottiera, to start with her experience about fostering a digital culture to promote local cultural heritage, followed by Giuseppe, who will focus on the benefits of participation and collaboration. I think it's a double act, isn't it? That you're...
So, Rosalba, I share the screen. So
yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you and good afternoon. I introduce myself. I am an expert of local development, European projects. I am a project manager. And in these last years, I've been working on some interesting projects of Hangar Piemonte, which is one, let's say, a sort of project, a big project of Piemonte region, working on the cultural sector. But my experience also comes from different, let's say, sectors where I've been experienced some practice with the communities, with the development of the cultural development linked to the community, so web community-based. So let's say that the concept that we are going to explore today revolves around the fact of empowering the local communities to promote their cultural heritage in a way that, let's say, put together smart technologies, sustainability, and also strong partnerships. So actually the projects that I've been sustaining in these years are all, have all in common the aspects of putting together the digital change, but also the green transition, and the theme, very important, of sustainability for the future. And let's say that I want also to introduce some general concepts that are linked to the territory, because before Alexander said that we're speaking of people and we're speaking of places, and actually what is really important about places is that they belong to the community. And there is this fascinating also concept that the territory is a collective work, and the community learns to reclaim the territory through memory, and the memory is a legacy of a territory. So we find in a territory where there are communities that want to promote cultural development, there is this attraction to use different tools to promote the spaces that belong to the community, but and that go through a real metamorphosis and become open spaces. We are going to see it in our webinar, also through the case studies of the other speakers. And so going on with the slide, I'm speaking about what is interesting is empowering the local communities through education and capacity building. What I mean that local communities very often have an invaluable traditional knowledge and practices that are related to their heritage. And by investing in education and training programs, the communities can gain the skills to manage and to protect their cultural resources using new technologies. And also the community-led initiatives, and afterwards Giuseppe will go deep into this aspect, engaging the local population, the local communities in the decision-making processes. This allows for the inclusion of the knowledge, of indigenous knowledge to be preserved, and also for the values, for the cultural values, ensuring that the heritage preservation is both meaningful and sustainable also for future generations. So the next one is about let's say sustainability. Okay, what I mean by Smart technologies for cultural heritage. Well, there are 3 different aspects we can go through. That is the digital preservation. There are tools which can be used and can digitally preserve historical sites and artifacts, making them accessible to the public without the risk of damage. So to protect them, but also to open them to the public. Then there is the aspect of smart cities integration. Cultural heritage sites can be integrated into smart city frameworks where data and connectivity help improve visitor experiences and manage resources more efficiently. And this, for instance, has been done in Turin, the city where I live. And this can go from ticketing systems to smart lighting, real-time monitoring. It depends also on the type of buildings that are treated and are part of the cultural heritage. And then there is the aspect of digitization projects, which mainly concerns the part of digital cataloging. Well, this is a design that has been done through a workshop. I've gone through the cultural, the digital culture, and the digital for the culture. It has been very interesting because what has been explored is the cultural challenge that goes through the digital, that is behind the digital transition. And what is the cultural challenge? The fact that we have to develop the dichotomy of going from analogical to digital, and to embrace a new dimension, a dimension that means life, because the cultural heritage becomes open, becomes living, but on the other, thanks to digital, but on the other way there is this aspect of very immaterial, because digital make also think that it's something that I can lose. And then there is the aspect of the speed. It's very, very fast. It can be also that there are some passing fashions about some aspects linked to digital. There is the digital divide. And on the other side, there is the fact that you have to work and to promote the territorial development. So there is the spatial development, and there is a social challenge linked to that. That is to keep the person in the center of these experiences, of these cultural experiences, and to promote meeting, to promote creativity, to promote efficiency. So this has been done, for instance, in a number of spaces, let's say really open spaces that were, for instance, old barracks, or that were some factories, productive factories have been abandoned, have been given back to the communities, and one of the tools that has been used to give them to the community was exactly the digital. So the digital, some digital aspects, as I mentioned, so to go through the digital divide, also to help these communities to use their spaces. Then there are still some aspects linked to sustainability in heritage management, and this is also linked to eco-friendly practices. I cannot see the slides anymore, but sustainability can be achieved by incorporating green technologies, and most of the times the green technologies, the green transition is linked to also the digital transition, and for instance, using some sustainable materials, or promoting low carbon, eco-friendly tourism practices around the heritage sites. So the cultural sustainability, it means that beyond the physical preservation, sustainability involves the continuation of cultural practices, of rituals, of crafts, and this can be supported by digital platforms that help promote the traditional arts, crafts, and languages, making them accessible again to global audiences, to a larger public. And then there is the aspect linked to building strong partnerships, because when we speak of community, when we speak of cultural heritage, when we speak of spaces that have a new dimension and a new cultural dimension, we can do that only through the building of public-private partnerships. And now, for instance, there are new forms of it, collaboration between the local governments, between the businesses, between academic institutions that can assure the provision of resources and expertise. And these partnerships are essential for providing funding, technology, implementation, research initiatives to promote this cultural heritage and the digital application. Then international collaboration, and this can be done through by creating global networks of experts, or participating, for instance, in networks like LDnet or experience like the one we're doing now through webinar, where we are sharing our experiences. And then community activation and community partnerships, engaging with local stakeholders such as artisans, local authorities, indigenous groups. This really fosters a sense of ownership and responsibility, ensuring that heritage preservation is really genuinely collaborative. Well, I think that now what I experienced is also the use of very developed methodologies that are taken from, for instance, from the traditional project management resources, but can be applied, can be used in the cultural communities, in the cultural projects, in order to promote them, to make them development, and to promote the use of the digital tools, and as well the green transition, because I've seen that these themes in these last years are very much connected in these types of projects that involve many aspects besides involving large communities. For me, it's okay. I can leave the table to Giuseppe. Thank you.
Thank you to Rosalba, and it's the second time that we have a shared presentation, but this time at a certain point I couldn't see even Rosalba because something happened to my screen, so I was only following the speech. So I will try to follow her speech again, because Rosalba finished with activating communities. And first question could be, why activating communities? And in order to answer this question, maybe we have another question to give. What is the role of the local community in the heritage valorization? I try to sketch in this way, because the community is both the custodian and the interpreter of its own cultural and historic assets. So it means that fundamentally, they are very critical, the communities, in order not only to preserve physically the heritage, but also to make that the heritage remains meaningful and accessible and sustainable. So the significance of the heritage is at the core of this involvement. And this was also the topic of a cost action that I managed from 2019 to 2023, which basically work in very proactive way with communities through 13 living labs. One of these living lab became a very bigger project and will be presented by Aris Martinos, and so I will not going to speak about. But these two functions, the preservation, physical preservation, and the culture, the meaningful, accessible values that they are at the basis of the heritage, they are also key aspects that through our cost action we underlined in the community involvement. You see the 6, but my exercise today, because we are going to deal with this connection between the heritage valorization and the use of new digital technologies, is trying to make this connection between the key aspect, the community involvement, and the digital advantages in using in the heritage. So digital revolution you heard from Rosalba is a real game changer for many local communities. Especially imagine the isolated ones. They are not the big cities, but the ones they are with a limited number of population, and maybe they need to overcome geographical barriers, or they amplify their cultural narratives, and they want also to engage themselves as a potential also economic development in sustainable preservation efforts. So I put also in this case, I listed what we got from our case studies in terms of advantages, but then I go quickly to present the tool, as also Rosalba mentioned before. Basically, we develop methodologies. This methodologies is a composition between corporative management, transition practice, and social practice theories. So it's enough articulated methodology, but is a step by step that should guide the local promoters in order to facilitate a dialogue with the stakeholders, to deepen the knowledge. Sometimes also these communities, they are not so connected to academic or the global heritage community, so they need additional studies in knowledge, or they need to preserve knowledge that is going away, and then to develop transition experiments and building new collective meanings and values, so, or recovering existing and past meanings. So it says in 4 phases, but I'm not going to present this because it has been already presented in the first webinar of LDnet of this year, and I will run through, on the contrary, the famous, let's say, key issues of involving communities. First of all, the problem of the collaborative governance and the policy influence. So empowering local communities it can ensure that heritage policies reflect the real needs and aspiration of the communities. It's not something that imposed by the global heritage community as UNESCO, but it must be a real need of the community. And also doing these participatory governance models helps to foster co-responsibility. So people are feeling responsible. Digital resources that can be used in many cases are related to the remote participation, the virtual collaboration, in order to not only use the possibility to connect with the international heritage professionals. You saw also the slide of Rosalba on this, but also to create a crowdsourcing platform for sharing and participating in the management decisions, so in real time. We have in Italy few examples, but they are increasing more and more this type of approaches. Then let's go to the second point, is the community-led conservation efforts. So trying to push the locals to be involved in the heritage management, not as a passive observers of what is happening, but as active stewards. And it means in terms of digital tools, we mention as a disaster prevention and resilience building. So digital mapping and help communities to track the environmental threat to their heritage, crowdsource data collection, allowing the locals to report damages and engage in real-time heritage protection efforts. As you can see, there are a certain kind of correspondence between the topics. Traditional knowledge, on the contrary, and the local craftsmanship and community-driven initiatives, they can manage through digital resources as a digital documentation and preservation, digital archives, or geomatics tools can help the community in order to keep real historical records and maintain ensuring the accessibility of their heritage, also with the risk of physical deterioration that can happen. And then we go to the economic and cultural regeneration, that sometimes for us working on LDnet is the priority. And so basically heritage-based activities, they can be a relevant economic opportunity, and they could also reinforce the cultural pride of the community. Thinking that this story has a sense and meaning, they must integrate the heritage in the local development strategies in order to benefit from sustainable tourism model, for example, but sometimes also in activities that they respect their cultural and environmental resources, avoiding risks, and sometimes for, let's say, very isolated communities, it means sometimes that the accessibility is not the must, and we have to work on promoting virtual tourism experiences, attracting visitors without the need for large-scale infrastructures. And we can promote the local economy through e-commerce solutions that, for example, happened in many areas of India in the past, where they created consortium cooperatives of women dealing with a special type of textile, and not through the physical participation of visitors, but through e-commerce solutions. And we go to the next one, that the heritage as a catalyst for social inclusion. Also in this case is very important, as you can see, the digital resources, especially for engaging and empowering different community groups, marginalized population that often are excluded and they have no open access to resources. Then also supporting initiatives in terms of heritage for the social cohesion, the political dialogue, intergenerational exchange, and cultural identity reinforcement. So the idea we need in this part the realization, the support of inclusive heritage projects. In many cases, we dealt with, for example, one of the concepts very used is the Eco Museum. And so trying to reclaim and reinterpret from the different communities their heritage and the recognizing from the others. It means that is a sort of a democratization of the access to the heritage, and the digital tools, just like digital platform, open access database, can help local communities in this. But this must be supported by a cultural transition. So also from tools, digital tools for heritage education and community engagement, especially for the younger generations. So using other type of digital tools for heritage in interactive ways. And so we have many examples. And then we go to the active participation to the heritage interpretation, because the idea of engaging community is not only engaging community in one part of the process, but in all process. And one of the main processes is the reflection on the heritage, the narratives, the creation and the the interpretation, as I told. And basically, everything starts from the idea of Walter Benjamin, that the only one that really knows about his own heritage is the local. And they have intimate knowledge of the heritage. Their heritage is contextualized and basically a long path of small stories that is not the academic perspective. And so how on this, you can imagine, we developed an Erasmus project that is managed by Alexander Covine, that is here. So I'm not going to speak about that, but you will learn about it in the next future. We are started some 5-6 months now, and we are going to create a course for heritage interpretation, participated heritage interpretation. So putting together the need of planning for interpreting heritage and the responsibility to involve communities. Then digital resources, as you can see, they are a very fashionable one, AR and VR for the interpretation. So in order that also enhancing local storytelling, but I think in this case, the case studies from Malta will be very, very illuminating. And we go to the last, because the last but not the least is the education and awareness building. The need to consider this not a short-term process, but a longer term, is a real cultural transition in many different countries. And so school, local associations, any type of grassroots association, they play a very relevant role in educating the community about the heritage. So the heritage must be incorporated in local curriculum and promoted through workshops, instilling a sense of ownership and responsibility in the future generation. So obviously a good part of the game can be played by all these digital resources of social media platforms. They have very direct connection with many of different, let's say, ages in our current societies, and or other digital tools for empowering locals as a younger generation that already mentioned. So I rant very fast in this, but as you know, we have a final question and discussion, and I'm very curious to listen also about the case studies. So I let the floor again to Alexander, and we are coming back afterwards for discussion.
Okay, thank you, Giuseppe. Now, I'd like to hand over to Anthony Casa, who will take us to Malta to present a case study to promote the heritage of the Malta dockyard using the concept of a memory twin. Anthony, when you're ready.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'll share the screen. Just a second. Yeah. Should be seeing the screen, right? Yeah. Okay. Is the screen okay? Is it being shared?
We don't see your first slide, but
yeah. Is that okay now?
No.
No, I don't.
Let's try again.
Slide.
Is it okay
there
now?
We go.
Good.
We can see your screen now.
Excellent. Excellent.
You just
okay, so,
make it full screen, and then you're away.
Good.
That's it.
Okay.
Perfect.
So my name's Tony. I come from Malta. I'm the head of the digitization unit at Heritage Malta. Heritage Malta is the national agency for cultural heritage, and we are responsible for around 90 sites around Malta and Gozo, including a number of UNESCO heritage sites. And my unit is responsible for digitizing the national collection. So anything related to tangible and intangible culture heritage on the ground, overground, and undersea, under the water, we digitize it. Obviously, we're speaking of a huge national collection. But today I would like to speak on something quite specific, on a new trend that we're working on, which is called the memory twin. But let me try to explain what memory twin is in a very simple way. So over here, we have a cup of coffee and a tissue in it. So basically, the tissue represents the building. So we're scanning buildings, we're scanning cultural heritage objects. And once we scan them through photogrammetry, laser scanning, LiDAR, 2D scanning, photography, whatever digitization method we use, that becomes a digital twin. So that is a digital replica of the cultural heritage we have. But what happens when you dip the tissue into the coffee? Basically, the tissue starts absorbing the coffee. In this case, coffee is memory. So once the tissue starts absorbing memory, it ceases to be just a physical building or a physical object. It becomes a memory twin. So the building becomes a monument. The object becomes an artifact. Now, once the digital twin is soaked with stories, it's soaked with intangible cultural heritage as well as collective memory, it is no longer simply a structure, it becomes a monument, it becomes an artifact. It is a place imbued with meaning, experiences, and the echoes of the people and the community who lived, worked, and created within its walls. And this can be applied for practically any type of cultural heritage which we are digitizing. This is a concept which we are working very much on with the UNESCO Digital Chair for Cultural Heritage, Professor Marinos Ioannidis, and we are creating at the moment a lot of studies, standards, as well as methodologies on how to take this approach when digitizing our national heritage. But I would like to, so this is what I just explained now, but I would like to apply the memory twin concept to the dockyard collection. So over here, this is a photo of the Malta Grand Harbour. This is the primary reason why Malta has, for many, many millennia, been colonized by foreign powers because of the deep sea Grand Harbour and the very safe Grand Harbour, which makes Malta's strategic location in the Mediterranean even more valuable. And because of the Grand Harbour, the Knights were the first to develop a dockyard, and the Knights, who were a big military naval power in the Mediterranean, used the Malta dockyard with their ships, which they used to use for their navy. But after the Knights, the dockyards grew and they got transformed into a much bigger and very powerful dockyard during the British period. The British military fleet was based in the Mediterranean through Malta. And obviously, this was a very strategic location to repair warships in World War I and especially in World War II, and use this strategic location to control the Mediterranean sea traffic. Obviously, after the war, there was a big transition. Malta became independent, so it also became neutral. So the move from military dockyard to a more commercial dockyard started transitioning, and the dockyard transformed themselves into a major ship repair and shipbuilding facilities in the Mediterranean. In the 80s, the dockyards faced decline because of a number of reasons, but primarily also the economic realities of shifting dockyards towards other continents. And a few years ago, the dockyard, as we knew it, closed and it became privatized. It got reduced in size and the workforce. And so basically, for most people, the Malta dockyards, as it was known, ended. So the idea behind this was that the dockyard was a very important industry for Malta, and we felt as a national agency that it forms part of our national heritage, and we wanted to document and digitize as much material as we could find and include it in the national collection. So this included a huge amount of items which are in the national collection, ranging from ship models to maps and plans and diagrams, as well as toolkits and equipment used by the workmen at the dockyard. And in fact, we started this big digitization program of digitizing all these assets. But apart from the tangible parts, the equipment, we felt that one very important lacking part in all of this was the actual memory of the workmen who lived and gave their lives basically to build this industry, something which practically ended with the end of the physical dockyard. And we felt that for us to document in full the real picture of the dockyard, we had to document these memories of these workmen who are still alive. And in fact, one of the main projects which started with COVID was to start documenting and interviewing as many workers as we could find, and gathering their memories. In fact, we went to them, we interviewed them in their homes, we invited them to our studios, and gave them the opportunity to record as much content as they wanted, not in the form of a structured interview, because we did not in any way want to influence what they were saying. And this meant that we've recorded hundreds and hundreds of hours of interviews or memories of these ex-stockyard workers. Obviously, the vast majority of them are quite old, I would say, and in fact, we have lost at least 25% of these ex-workers since we started the interviews. So it was a fight against time. We needed to collect as much memories as we could to document this collective memory of the dockyard. So, as I said, we invited them to our studios. We did not really have a structured question and answer style, but literally gave them the time they needed to speak about anything they could remember. So the time during the dockyard, their apprenticeship, any accidents or any particular memories they wanted to speak about, especially the community aspect between the workers themselves, topics related to safety, and any particular theme that they wanted to touch on. So basically, this meant that in the end, we had a huge collection of audio content which was recorded, which was quite challenging to analyze. So this is where we introduced the tools, the digital tools, to try to analyze it. So what we've done was we transcribed all the interviews, all the memories. We built an AI engine which allows us to query these hundreds of hours of recordings, and using AI, we can parse any question and get the workmen themselves to answer us through this model, this AI-driven model. More importantly, also, we put everything in a publication. Obviously, the publication couldn't hold all the transcripts of everyone because it would have been a huge encyclopedia. So what we have in the book is the picture and the short introduction about each employee who was introduced, and a QR code which allows you to listen to the recorded interview. Like this, we could allow the public to listen to the whole hundreds of interviews which were done through the publication, but also through an online portal which we are developing to put all this content available online. Coincidentally, this content is going to be the first set of content which will be uploaded into Europeana from next week once we become certified as the national data aggregator within Europeana. So over here, you're seeing pictures of the ex-dockyard employees with their interview, some basic information about themselves, but then more importantly, you can see at the bottom of the page, there's the QR code, which takes you to the full recording. And this whole exercise really became much bigger than we have even imagined it would be. So the whole community of ex-dockyard workers, their relatives, their second generation kids and nephews, they wanted to know about their grandparents, what life in the dockyard was, but it also attracted a lot of interest from students, researchers, Gen Zs who hardly knew anything about the dockyard. And because of this created a very big community interest. We started creating regular monthly meetups where different teams with different discussions were carried out. We also created exhibitions where the ex-dockyard workers themselves could get their own tools and artifacts which they had from their time during the dockyard. We digitized these artifacts, but also included with them the memories and the stories they gave us. And this gave a lot of more value to the object itself. So the object got these intangible layers of information, which are now documented and included in our collections management system. So basically, this is what I wanted to share. And we have realized that, let me try to stop sharing. Yeah, we have realized that through this approach of memory twin, we are not only digitizing the physical object, But even more importantly, we're including a lot of information related to paradata, not only metadata of the object itself, that this will make the long-term sustainability and interoperability of the objects that we are digitizing much easier to transfer to future generations in order to interpret better and also use them differently. The fact that all this content is digitized, we are now creating virtual exhibitions, 3D navigational tools to explore exhibitions about the dockyard, virtual exhibitions about the dockyard. But most importantly, we have a huge community of people who are volunteering to help us digitize the rest of the collection, something which we desperately need just because the collection is huge. I don't know if I skipped the time which was allocated, but basically that was the case study which I wish to share with you, which is quite different from the traditional digitization methods that we use when we come to digitize archaeological sites and museum artifacts on their own. Thank you.
Anthony, thank you very much for that fascinating presentation, and you did keep pretty much the time there, so thank you for that. And it was particularly interesting for me because in France I had worked on a project at a dynamite works, or a gunpowder works in the south of France, and there were still some workers that were alive once the place closed in the 1970s, and capturing their experiences and insights was crucial. But we didn't have the kind of technology that you had. So if only we had. But thank you very much, Anthony. I'd like to invite Harris Martinos now, who's going to take us to westwards towards Paros and present his work on bringing an old marble quarry to life.
Thanks, Sandy. I'll share my screen and just a second. Larger. Can you see it now?
Yeah, my display has you next to your screen, but perhaps I can see the writing anyway.
Okay, thank you. I'm Harris Martinos. I'm one of the founding members of LDnet and an expert in local and regional development. I've worked in the last 30, 40 years throughout Europe. But tonight I'm with you as a local activist from the island of Paros in Cyclades in Greece. And I'll try to take you through briefly this example of our involvement in trying to protect and promote the ancient marble quarries of Paros and their cultural heritage. We are talking about rescuing the ancient quarries, which are mostly underground quarries, and trying to place them at the heart of cultural tourism and a sustainable model of local development. So I'll use quite a few slides to go fast and provide a snapshot of what are the quarries and their history. And then I'll talk briefly about the formation of a working partnership between the main institutions and the local community, and then the transition when the local community has taken the lead and is continuing to work on this project. I'll close with a few lessons learned so far. Now, if you are familiar with the GNC, Cyclades in the middle, and Paros somewhere in the center of it, south of Mykonos, north of Santorini, and next to Naxos, which is the largest island. And the ancient quarries are in the center of the island. It's a large archaeological area of about 200 hectares. We have surface quarries, ancient surface quarries. Some of them are older than the underground quarries. We have two underground quarries known as the Nymphs and Pans quarries. And there are more underground quarries that have not yet been located. They were reported as functioning or in existence, and they were visited by travelers in the 16th, 17th, 18th centuries. And on top of that, on the surface, we have a large industrial complex of buildings from the 19th century, when the exploitation of the ancient quarries was restarted. Now, what's significant about these quarries, other than being underground, is the famous lignitis, which is the translucent, the very fine, best quality of marble, white, smooth, and translucent. The light penetrates 35 millimeters. So they've been used throughout the ancient period from 3000 BC onwards for works of art. They started using pebbles for little statuettes, the Cycladic statuettes, and then surface quarrying, and then the underground quarries were created on the 7th century BC, basically by following the bed of the river you see in the picture here, which then takes, goes down at an angle. So they followed that, the seam of this good lignitis, good quality marble, and that's how they created the underground quarries. You see here the entrances of the quarry of the nymphs as in the current state, and you see the drawing, the 3 galleries, underground galleries. The length will be about 100 meters plus of each of them, and that's inside the quarry. And we make then the next step to see what they've done with that marble. So we have famous works of art in the most important museums in the world which have come from this Parian marble. You can recognize most of them. I should point out the one on the right, which is Augustus of Prima Porta, just to underline that the use of Parian marble was very extensive, very important during the Roman period. The presence of sculptures, works of art throughout the Mediterranean. These are the Parian marble located almost everywhere, not only in Greek colonies and settlements, but it's important that there were also works of art that were significant even in Phoenician and other settlements and other cities. So it was a very important cultural influence and very important also economic dimension because of the exports of both of the raw material, but quite often also semi-developed, semi-prepared works of art. They were accompanied by craftsmen, by sculptors, and so on and so forth. So there was quite a big economic and activity, cultural influence, and the archaeologists are talking about Parian soft power. There was a long period which we can describe as Middle Ages, where little was happening. We have visitors throughout Europe leaving their graffiti on the quarries, on the galleries of the quarries. And then we had this period in the 19th century of a lot of investment. And we have various buildings and various structures. You can see some of the pictures on the right-hand side where these are still with us and they dominate the landscape. In 1974, the Ministry of Culture designated This area is an archaeological area, protected, but there were many years of neglect up to now, where visitors leave the site disappointed, and the island is missing an opportunity for this unique cultural heritage to contribute to an alternative development model. So we come to the efforts we've made. The efforts up to a point, up to 2019, I would say 5 years or so ago, were taking the form of protests. Local associations would write letters to the ministry, protest, etc., etc., but there was no direct involvement in trying to solve the problem. There was no working in partnership. That became necessary in 2019. We had 2 workshops led by local associations, and we stopped complaining, so to speak. We stopped protesting and proposed, and this was accepted, to work together. So they formed a coordination committee, the municipality, both the mayor and the opposition, and the director of antiquities of Cyclades, the Ministry of Culture, and the local associations were brought in as a junior partner. There was definitely not a tradition of the local community participating actively at that level, and there was no question of sort of empowering the community. This wasn't offered, it was in a way taken out of necessity. This type of working lasted for 2 years and took the form of very useful discussions on problems, on possible solutions also, but it was left up to each partner to implement and take it further, and that would tend to be lost in their own priorities and the way they operated. So there was very little happening on the ground, and there was definitely a governance deficit. So we moved on with the associations which were involved. 6 local associations decided to form a non-profit organization, and this is still in existence and very active. And this injected, first of all, a new dimension, a vision to what we want to do, because we put on the table that we want to create an archaeological and cultural park, and we would like to be ambitious enough to believe that sometime in future this monument could be designated, could be recognized as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. There are 5 board members. I'm one of them. I'm just a plain member, not I don't hold a particular office. And we have lots of members and volunteers, and about 300 friends. And we are injecting some capacity in terms of knowledge. Some people are architects or engineers who are involved or have other qualifications, but we inject above all lots of motivation and drive of the whole process. There is from the beginning, we set up a quite informative website in Greek and English, and I've got the link at the end to see. And we take actions. I give you a few examples. So we gave priority trying to save the underground galleries because some of them were not in very good condition, especially the quarry of the nymphs. And there have been full studies carried out. We found the money and financed all of them. The other one, we did the preparatory work, and the Ministry of Culture financed it. You can see here also one of the teams working and starting the work and the type of reports they produced, specialist consulting engineers. So we managed to replace all the old signs and create a systematic set of information boards in 2 languages and systematic signage throughout the archaeological area. And we've been working on a series of smaller improvements, improving the entrances to quarries, improving the footpaths, and various other things which will make it much better for someone who visits to get to go around, to move around, to get the right impression. So with other important things we're doing here, they are quite major projects in the sense that they involve bigger budgets and lots of approvals. But the breakthrough is with digital solutions, which we've spent 4 years working with the University of the Aegean, the Cultural Technology Department, developing these ideas. And now, 2 months ago, we reached the stage of having a substantial budget of around 200,000 euros approved by the regional development program for the Southern Aegean for this purpose. And the Ministry of Culture is in the lead because it was only public bodies that were entitled to participate in this. But we are making a good start, and we have a 2-year timetable to complete the digital surveying and applications for virtual visits and virtual explanations of the methods of extraction in ancient times of the underground quarries. And we're working for various other applications to cover also the other aspects of the surface aspects of the area. And we're trying to find the necessary resources to implement stabilization measures in the quarries, in the underground galleries. Fundraising is an important dimension. We managed to have over 60 donors up to now. We organize concerts and other events. The local business support us. The local residents support us. We are very close to the local community with regular talks in schools and visited by schools. We had a photography competition last year with the subject being the ancient quarries. And we are starting, we've now developed the methodology with some expert support. We're starting a project of oral history because the quarries carried on one way or another up to the 1960s. So there are a few surviving people, but lots of others who have been visiting as children the underground quarries. They've been playing there. There is a lot of local folklore which we want to capture and take it further. We cooperate. We take the lead, but we cooperate closely with official bodies and other institutions, not only with Directorate of Antiquities, which is, by law responsible for this, but also with the New Monument Service of the Ministry of Culture. They are responsible for the 19th century industrial buildings, of course, with the municipality, with Athens Polytechnic because of the nature of the issues we address, and as University of the Aegean, the Museum of Cycladic Art. So these are the most important players, and we have a formal protocol of cooperation signed with the Directorate of Antiquities. So what lessons we can draw? I think it's important that to claim an ownership position for the community, one needs to back it up with longer-term vision and a lasting commitment. To be able to take the lead in proposing specific actions, again, you need to have at least some technical resources and financial resources, and you need to cooperate with and motivate other players. You need to be inclusive. Can't do everything, especially if you are a small NGO. To stay credible, people, including the local community, much more the official institutions, expect to see things done. So you have to get things done, or to appear at least to be completing what you said you will be doing, at least some of them, to be taken seriously and to bring others along. And to stay relevant, it's important to keep the appreciation and the valorization of the cultural inheritance we have here at the heart of the debate about the development and prosperity of the island. And there is a very hot debate which really starts with great concerns about over-tourism, over-development, and the fact that we neglected many aspects of the local culture, the local traditions. And this particular project stays very close to that debate and offers some of the solutions. But there are still challenges, one of which is what will happen with what we are trying to create. We'll have an archaeological cultural park, but managing the community taking charge and managing such a thing will be really difficult. Leaving it to the traditional players, the Ministry of Culture, or to the municipality, that could also be something that will not really make justice of all these efforts. So this is one of the question marks, but we need to keep going and need to keep the community in the driving seat. Here is a link to our website, and Giuseppe, I think, has the links to the case study on the Parian marble that has been included in the project he was directing, which is Underground for Value Cost Action. Thank you very much for your attention. Apologies if I exceeded my time.
Thank you very much, Haris. I think you raised a very good point at the end of that about community expectations and the need to show progress once you get something going, to show progress that you're delivering, because it's for motivation and for retaining support. So yeah, you start a train going, and you need to keep after it. So that was a good point to make. Thank you, Haris. Well, now we will complete our presentations with Roberta, who is going to talk to us about Crespi d'Adda, which is a UNESCO-listed model town for factory workers near Bergamo. And Roberta is going to talk to us about the use of digital tools to create a smart community-based management plan for the site. Over to you, Roberta.
Thank you. I will share my presentation. Okay, I hope you can see it. And I start by introducing myself. And I'm Roberta De Bonis Patrignani. I work as an expert in cultural heritage management with Rosalba in Angers Piemonte, but mainly I am a researcher for the Links Foundation, which is a research center based in Italy, an instrumental body of the Politecnico of Turin and of Compagnia di San Paolo, which is one of Italian's largest philanthropic foundation, supporting culture, education, research, social welfare, and so on. And the Links Foundation activity focuses on innovation and digital transformation, but my research area deals with cultural heritage, with we apply on advanced technology like AI, IoT, and digital twins to preserve, study, or enhance historical assets. We collaborate with museums, with institutional archaeological areas, and or sites to develop and management plan, or to write the candidature dossiers, or to study trends like tourist trends. Our project include also smart tool for conservation, documentation, or immersive storytelling, such as 3D modeling, virtual reconstruction, or data-driven strategies to safeguard cultural heritage while making it more accessible and engaging for the public. Today, I am presenting the case of Crespidadda, which is a worker village, an hamlet in the Capriate San Gervasio municipality near the city of Bergamo, and it is well preserved company town, including factory, housing, and services. In December 1995, Crespi, together with the factory, still active in the period, was inscribed on UNESCO World Heritage List as an outstanding example of 19th and early 20th century company towns built in Europe and North America by enlightened industrialists to meet the workers' needs. So the industrial activities of Crespi has significantly declined during the years, and at the end of the 20th century is closed in 2004. In 2013, a located entrepreneur decided to use the factory to as its headquarters as an headquarters for his company. So purchased the factory, but today it is still unused. It has not restarted yet the activity. Although there is a program agreement already signed with the municipality. The governance of the site is entrusted to the Crespidadda Association, whose mission is to develop research, to safeguard the site, and to promote the awareness of the site's values. So the association works with the municipality of Crespidadda, and which is has appointed a city commission composed of 6 members to support the participatory process and to work together on the management plan. What is the management? Oh, sorry, I'm sharing in Italian. Sorry, I changed the presentation. I didn't. You were seeing the Italian one.
The slide was in English, Roberta.
Ah, okay. Because I saw it in Italian and.
Well,
okay.
Certainly the first slide, anyway.
Okay, it's in English. Can you see it in English?
We can't see your slide, Roberta. Maybe try again.
Happened. Yeah.
There we go.
No.
We can see your
the
laptop screen now. So
I'm coming. I don't know what happened. Sorry about that.
It's okay. Are you able to share again?
Yes, you should. Okay, it's arriving.
Okay.
I hope. Can you see it now?
We can see it.
Okay. Because I saw my...
Yeah.
Okay, I saw it in Italian, maybe it was... the management plan is aimed at defining coordinated activities for the preservation and conservation of a cultural heritage and the promotion of cultural values. It includes the design of the strategy and the definition of specific initiatives through the involvement of the local stakeholders and residents. The UNESCO requires the management plan to be lean. That means easy to read, and as it regards the management of the site, and it does not have to describe the history or give information already contained in the application dossier. It has to be strategic. That means that the project and objectives contained in the plan must not only look at the short term, but they have to also to the medium and long term to plan the future of the site and of the community living in the site, UNESCO site. It has to be participated by citizen, association and stakeholders operating in the territory, and this to be sure to meet their needs and to create a greater commitment to the work and towards the plan itself. Finally, it has to be concrete, which means that the project must be relevant to the state of things, have an order linked to priorities, and possibly to a quantification of the necessary funding and potential sources of funding to draw from. These characteristics ensure that the plan becomes an effective management plan and tool, and not a dream book with little probability of being realized. How it is structured, the work. What you see here are the 4 phases foreseen for the drafting of the management plan. It starts from a phase of cognitive analysis to detect the state of conservation of the site, the socioeconomic context that characterizes the site, and the various local and national regulations to which the site is subject to. The process of involving the local community follows, and we will see it in a while in more details. The elements that emerge from the analysis of the community and in terms of needs, priorities, and desired vision for the site define the strategic objectives that will take concrete form through the drafting of the action plan. And the compilation of project sheets on individual action or initiatives. Finally, on the basis of the execution times of the individual activities and of the KPIs of them, there is a monitoring plan to be activated to be sure that all the activities are realized in the right form and times. So if the World Heritage requires us to preserve beauty and culture for future generations, who more than young people has the right to be involved in this process and in this strategic process. We were aware that certainly they will have not returned as complex or concrete action plans. But we believe that they could guarantee us the return of an unpredictable, disinterested, and more imaginative point of view that the one that technicians or adults could propose. So the work with students developed by the Crespi Dada Association in 4 different moments with an alternation of frontal lesson and guided visits to the site. to test the effectiveness of this process, some questionnaires were administered both at the beginning and at the end of the process, from which a slight difference in terms of awareness emerged. As you can see, is in terms of UNESCO awareness at the beginning, the 8% of them knew that what the UNESCO is, but only the 47% knew what an heritage site is. I put some numbers to show you the difference between the beginning of the process at the end. Moving on, the awareness linked to the site of Crespi d'Adda where they live. These are the answers. So we have 56% of them that knew the history of Crespi d'Adda, worker village, a third thanks to grandparents' stories or conversations heard in the family, 2/3 of them because they heard that about it at school or on television. Of these, of the 56%, the 90% also visitors the worker village, 60% visited the factory, while only the 21% visited the UNESCO Visitor Center. On the right, you can see some picture of the questionnaires we submitted. The topic of living in a World Heritage Site and having to coexist with tourists was then addressed. We were talking about just before. As you can see, the 87% of the young is aware of residing in a territory that included UNESCO sites. The 75% consider inclusion in the UHL as an opportunity, while 20% consider it's a problem. The 84% is proud of this condition. When we asked them which was the attitude of residents toward tourists, the 83% doesn't know how to answer or didn't want to express an opinion. The 17%, the left 70%, 91% was finding it pleasant and positive, while 9% find it unpleasant and annoying. The presence of tourism is also seen as an opportunity. It is half-half. It was half-half at the beginning, so between an opportunity and a problem. At the end of the process, the answer changed. Another questionnaire was administered and to assess any changes in awareness and participation regarding the impact of touring and about being living in a UNESCO site. And the answers have changed slightly. In fact, according to the students, the presence of visitors represents an opportunity for the village for the 75%, which is much more than its initial 51. For 5%, it is a problem to be solved, while 20% didn't commit themselves in expressing an opinion. What you see here are the feedbacks regarding the visit to the site and to the visitor center. So we took the students to visit the site and to visit the visitor center, and so there are many positive aspects that they found out, and on the other hand, some negative feedback has emerged about the presence of closed places in the village, the disorder and the dirt, and the state of abandonment of some elements of material heritage. Finally, in the lower half side of the slide, the suggestion of the student to promote local development. So we asked them how to promote the local development of the territory. And they say we should encourage the reopening of the spaces that are still closed. In Crespi d'Adda, which is a really small place, there are quite a lot closed place, promote conscious and monitored tourism, bringing work back to the factory, which is considered that the factory surface is the same that the village. So it is really big, and it is closed at the moment. So for the young people, it is a key point. Engage the community more, especially young people. They ask us to be involved in the management process and in the activities of the village, and then enhance the heritage of the historical archive, because many of them didn't know the presence of this archive on the Crespi family. We therefore have had an explicit request to allocate to cultural spaces originally intended for other activities, in line with the phenomenon that we mentioned above, which is recording a real trend towards the redevelopment and refunctionalization of disused or abandoned places to be allocated to cultural activity or social inclusion initiatives. In Crespi, the institution and the private actors are trying to put culture in ordinary life. The creation of an exhibition space inside the shopping or multi-service center, which is planned inside the factory, is a project, but there are also external spaces that have been repurposed and intended for local cultural association. So there is the volunteer of the municipality to meet this need that came from young people. Here you have some of the proposals that came from students. And then we pass to the participatory process with citizens. So here you have some of the meetings that we create 3 meetings with different targets, where the first 2 groups received a personal invitation. So there was targeted groups, while for citizens we made an open call to anyone who wanted to participate. The aim of the tables was to get to know each other, because the place is very small, but they didn't know each other, not all, to share a vision and explain the role of the management plan, because it's not so clear to everybody. We wanted to understand what it means to live or own a property inside a UNESCO site or belonging to a site. So constraints towards benefits. And finally, plan and starting a possible coordination table. To reach this goal, we worked also with a business model Canva adapted to the purpose. Each table and stakeholder group discussed and produced projects and ideas with the actors to be involved, with the objectives and the expected, most of all, the expected impacts on the world, the cultural heritage on the community. 6 months after the last meeting, a moment of feedback of all the results of the entire participatory process took place, and here you can see some pictures of the of us working in the tables and summarizing the result of various group works and a meeting with school and how they will be in explaining them how their project will be inserted in the plan. These are some visions that came from the citizen. With some digital tools, we collected during the plenary meetings the feedback in real time through interactive polls that create word clouds or live chart. Participants joined the via QR code the tool and submit the responses using their smartphone. So it is engaging for them. And the platform instantaneously visualizes data, creating dynamic word cloud, bar charts, pie charts, and as other visual update live. So you have the restitution of the results in real time. So I try to make some conclusion about the participatory process in UNESCO site management and the importance because it improves effectiveness of the plan itself. So it strengthens local engagement, inclusive planning fosters a sense of ownership and responsibility among local community, ensuring long-term commitment to site preservation. Enhancing decision-making, so integrating diverse perspectives leads to well-rounded, sustainable management strategies that balance conservation, tourism, and community needs, which is the real problem in every UNESCO sites. The needs of tourists and of citizens is the point. Promoting sustainable development, participatory process align heritage protection with the social economic growth, creating opportunities while safeguarding the cultural and natural assets. It open opening dialogue helps mitigate conflicts, ensuring transparent and widely accepted management decisions. Adapted and included governance strengthen the site's ability to respond to emerging challenges, from climate change to evolving tourism dynamics, as we said. So participatory processes are not just a methodology, but they are really the key to a sustainable and effective UNESCO site management, because they are cultural heritage, but the needs that have to be preserved, but they are there are people living inside them, and so we have to protect also their needs. I try to concentrate.
Okay, thank you very much, Roberta.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was a very interesting presentation about a very comprehensive consultation process, and also exploring that really interesting dimension of living in a heritage site. I mean, we often see heritage sites as sort of unpopulated and fenced off, but people also do live in heritage sites, which raises a whole bunch of other issues, particularly about, for instance, being able to afford to live in a heritage site, particularly with a UNESCO tag to it, as the price of housing rises, which I've seen in other UNESCO sites. So, but thank you very much for that. Thank you very much to our speakers. We have overrun a little bit, but I hope you found the presentations interesting and valuable for you. We have some time for some questions to share with our speakers. So if you haven't posted any already in the chat, then please do so. Joanna is with us and can keep an eye on the chat. Joanna, unfortunately, I've got relatively limited access to the chat. I can see some later ones, but I just wondered whether there were other questions that have been added to the chat.
There was just two initially.
Yes.
Did you get those, or you want me to read those ones out?
Yes, about heritage, about interpretation skills.
Yes.
And then about
the quality of the jobs.
Yes. And I think that was more focused on Anthony's presentation, or came as a result of Anthony's presentation. Is that
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah. But
So
I think
I wonder.
as far as my question was sort of to everybody generally, because I think that came up in Roberta's presentation as well about the the creation of jobs in the factory, because jobs are the type of jobs is obviously important, because they have to make a living, and what I wanted to know was whether these actually were viable living jobs or something that occupied people's free time.
Thank you, Joanna. Roberta, would you have a response to that?
So I don't know if I get the right way the question, but in Crespi, yes, they have. Of course, it was a factory based on production, and it's not going to be like that anymore. But it's going to be a multifunctional, maybe offices and services, multi-services for people or for co-working spaces and. The idea is to requalify the factory, which is really a big one, creating a different destination also for each space. So, but there is not it's not planned yet, because it's a private property, and so they are discussing with the municipality for the destination of use, and then they could the first idea was to put his headquarters of his activities. Then they try to to create activities to give the factory back to people, and not to make other come in Crespi to work. I don't know if I explained the concept. So because if you put an office that already exists and you just translate it in another place, people from this office will come and took a place. And instead, the request of the municipality was try to create the work for the people of Crespi, to keep people and young people of Crespi live in this little town.
Okay, thank you, Roberta. I just wanted to perhaps bring in Giuseppe, who mentioned at the very beginning that heritage is also an economic driver. And I wondered whether, Giuseppe, you had any insights you could give us in terms of the economic benefits, particularly in terms of quality of jobs or potential for new types of jobs for people.
Yeah, so we are living in a transition, like Sandy. So the problem is that we are not recreating the old traditional jobs, but we can reinterpret, we can regenerate new economy that is not only tourism. I think one of the limits of our interpretation of the economic development in heritage areas is that we focus mainly on tourism and physical tourism. So we want to improve the accessibility. We want to improve a lot of services for tourists, forgetting inhabitants, forgetting also that this site is based on authenticity. If we lose authenticity, we are losing also the meanings of the site, becoming something different. So the idea is dealing with also the heritage interpretation is in one way. Our Erasmus project is one way to look at the economic side, reintroducing the community in the interpretation, not seeing that site only as a Roman site or a Greek site, but seeing what was happening also in the last years of the site. reading the narratives of the locals means also the locals can become also part of a story that can be virtual. As also today we played a lot with the digital transition, basically. And it's a way to do different type of business. We are looking at the youngsters. Youngsters are not thinking as we think in terms of jobs. So we need to accept that is changing, and we need to deal with the new type of jobs for reconnecting a past. That was the game of the heritage. In order that we are not going to new, or we are going to change the heritage, but we can preserve it fundamentally, because without an economic support, anything will decay. And at the same time, we are reframing the meanings for many people. And this is, I think, is a complex cultural transition, because we have to get out of our boxes. And I think youngsters are much more, let's say, good in reframing. And my idea is that new jobs or new professionalities should be based on what is going to become our societies. They are not what we imagine in the past. So it's a challenge that that we are running with the Erasmus. So we are collecting and interviewing experts, but also we want them to share with communities.
Okay, thank you, Giuseppe.
I'm not sure that I responded 100%, but because the main problems of good quality jobs is what do you mean by quality job?
Yeah.
In Italy, the quality job is a good state salaried place fixed for the future. But for many others, it would be entrepreneurship, other, let's say, temporary jobs, able to move from one place to the other, maybe.
Yeah. I think we're sort of, just by your intervention, we're kind of widening the subject as well, because take your point about reframing, and that there are actually presenting heritage can be quite an innovative area for new occupations. I'm thinking particularly about the trend for gamification, for example, which can be done at distance or remotely, but also on site, which is a particular area of interest for younger people and innovative young startup companies, for example. I know quite a few examples throughout Europe where this process is used to bring heritage to life. I just wanted maybe to throw in here that from the comments that certainly the industrial heritage is really quite a sort of passionate area for everyone, and thinking about Anthony Cassa's presentation about the Malta dockyard, I was wondering, I had a question about exactly kind of where the sweet spot is between digital technology and first-hand experiences through heritage interpretation, for example, like I mentioned at the beginning. And I just wondered, Anthony, whether you had any thoughts on finding that balance between the use of digital technology to raise awareness, to offer experiences to people, backed up with face-to-face experiences where people use their senses as well through heritage interpretation.
I guess the role of digitalization is to make sure that whatever you're digitizing, whether it's the 3D model or the intangible part, it's done in a way which follows standards, follows methodologies to ensure that is good quality, that the quality is consistent, that the quality can be also passed on to other systems, other aggregators, other data, which can be transferred and become interoperable. And the idea that apart from the physical information, the physical digitalization, we're also collecting the metadata and paradata related to memories and intangible. That is offering the opportunity for further interpretation by different people. So I feel that digitization is a tool in the end. It is not the beginning and end all of the whole process. It's a multidisciplinary process where many different stakeholders and people and experts need to work together to create meaningful interpretation. Also keeping in mind that the trend now is that the public wants to be able to make their own conclusions, derive their own conclusions and make their own interpretation rather than having the curator who interprets everything for you and gives you the final kind of conclusion of what you're seeing and this is what you are being told, but rather giving you the opportunity to reflect and come to your own conclusions on it. And digitization can help with that process because it captures, it documents, and even makes accessible to the general public as much information as can be collected and obtained through the process.
Thank you, Anthony. I think certainly for me, you hit the nail on the head there. That it's just with new ways to interpret heritage now, it's not about somebody telling you what you should think about a place. It's more a heritage professional facilitating your personal experience. So presenting a site or a place to you, but allowing you to circulate in it and take what is meaningful to you personally, and then facilitating that kind of connection, personal connection with the heritage site. So it's quite a complex area. I know that in face-to-face visitor experiences, experience guides can help in this process. But I'm very interested to see how digital tools can also present you with if you like, an open book for a site where you can take from it what is of interest and what is meaningful to you. So I think it's important to view digital tools and digital technology as a source for finding your own personal meanings and values in a site, rather than just one single message. It'll be very interesting to see all your projects here as they develop using digital technology. I noticed that I mentioned a project which was called HI People that I'm managing, and we're developing a digital module for digital heritage interpretation. So this will be a training module for guides, heritage professionals, and site managers to be able to use digital technology for interpretive visitor experiences. So it's good to see that heritage interpretation, traditionally as it was, is not shying away from digital technology. If
I may, Sandy, one obvious area where digital tools can help is the fact that in a museum, the items on display in a museum are the items chosen by the curator who has the experience and thinks that those objects can say the story that the museum wants to convey best. The truth is that the museum has got a huge limitation in terms of space and what is available on display. So the vast majority of the collection is hidden away in the reserve collection, which is not accessible to the public physically. And there might be objects, there might be artifacts which are interesting to the public, but they simply cannot see them because they're locked away. So digital tools make these artifacts accessible online. People can go in, see what they like, build their own experiences and their own curated exhibitions, group them into favorites, read the stories tied to them, And this is the whole idea behind, for example, Europeana and making all these digital artifacts available for the general public, which gives a lot of power to the individual over and above the physical experience of a museum, because you have all the time in the world to look at these items from the comfort of your home, find the ones which interest you, possibly not linked necessarily to specific collections, but you can do your own collection based on different collections from different museums. So yes, digital has a lot of potential, especially now with going into 3D digitization and how you import these 3D objects and print them and use them for different gamification ideas, and also used in the film industry. This is something which Giuseppe mentioned before on how to make some sustainability in terms of commercialization. So, for example, some of the 3D scanning work which we do to document our national heritage is now also being used in big blockbuster films which are in the cinema at the moment. So it's a way of reusing our 3D digitized assets and at the same time creating an income stream which we can then use to digitize even more assets and build our capacity building. So there are many opportunities there.
There are indeed. Thank you, Anthony. And I think, you know, I take from that it's about relinquishing control. It's about that sort of initial, or the classic reaction, say, in a museum is trying to present a particular story or narrative to people. But in fact, what people are looking for now is multiple narratives and narratives that correspond to them. And that means, you know, letting the people have their have control, which is a scary thing for some people. But something that I think we're getting more and more used to now, and seeing the benefits of it, of this dynamic process. Well, I'm just conscious of the time and the fact that you know, some people are beginning to log off. So I think we ought to bring our webinar to a close, and I would just like to thank you everybody for your presentations, and thank you very much for the organizers and all of you participating here. I think we've seen a lot of powerful approaches about how to mobilize communities and take people from being passive observers or even onlookers to active stakeholders. And there's so many spin-offs as well. I mean, because participation through digital processes fosters initiatives, associations, newsletters, Facebook groups, fundraising, events, campaigns, as we've seen in your presentations, and that heritage can be a catalyst for this, and not a sort of dusty relic, if you like. It's also, you know, with digital technology, it extends participation and it makes plans to promote cultural heritage more accessible and democratic. So just like an online survey, you know, captures more responses than an on-site one, for example. So digital technology really has the power to engage and inspire alongside, I would say, as a heritage interpreter, first-hand experiences to bring heritage to life for local people, but also for visitors. So just like my colleague said in the beginning, you know, heritage is about people and places, but the digital landscape is very much part of the picture too. So I would like to thank our speakers and our organizers, and thank you for joining us this evening for this LDnet webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexander. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you to you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.